Okay, let me give you some tips for designing a double jointed knee joint. You'll use the same kind of method to make an elbow joint. It kind of depends on what kind of aesthetic you're looking for, what kind of look, how you want the knee to, like, do you want a kneecap? Do you want the knee hidden entirely by the sculpted kneecap? You just kind of do whatever you want. You can do simple, you can do a little bit more complex, you can add locking mechanisms. I personally like locking mechanisms. It may change the look of like your sculpt while you're working on it as well, but we'll dive right in and I'll tell you some tips that I've learned while making my own knee joints. So first off, I learned how to make my knee joints by subscribing to Don Kenny's Patreon. Unfortunately, it's not active right now. He's busy doing other stuff currently. But I learned a lot from him, so shout out to my best cool sculpting artist friend Don Kenny, also known as By Shonen House. He's the one that taught me these knee tricks, and I'm gonna teach them to you. So this is a friend's sculpt that they've got going on here. I'm gonna kind of guesstimate where they want the knee, because it kind of looks like it's drawn up here. Seems a little bit high. I might push it down here if that were me. But basically, to make a knee, you can do this while 3D modeling as well. You don't have to draw it. But I found that if you draw the knee or any joint, you can actually kind of test how it works. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing you want to do is make a circle. I'm going to change the line weight to be a little smaller. So you want your circle to be the width of your knee. Like, let's say about like this. And now you want it to be the width of your knee because you're going to be needing it to bend. I'm not good at explaining, but so you're going to make a circle, you're going to duplicate that circle and put another one right about there. Because you want this to be 2 circles long. Now another thing you're going to want to do is you can sculpt a kneecap, or you can do what I do, which is put a third sphere, pull it out like this. Because when you 3D sculpt a knee, you need it to cave in here in the back. And you need this to, you can smooth this out, you can sculpt a kneecap on it like this, add some locks, or like some bending guides like that. You don't have to. You can just leave it nice and simple. You can also dummy this down. It doesn't really have to bow out like that. I like it to bow out because I think it looks a little bit more natural. Okay. Another thing you're going to need to keep in mind is your knee needs to be able to be open at the top and the bottom. So we're going to have a channel through here like this. So just keep that in mind. Now, as you can see, this knee that I drew isn't really fitting this sculpt quite as much as we want it, so I'm going to rotate it. Effie, you can't eat my bowl of cereal. Effie, no. Effie, you can't eat that. You can't eat that. Thank you, dear. Thank you. You can eat that. My bunny's trying to eat stuff she's not supposed to. Anyway, we're going to rotate this and fit it. I think they kind of want the knee about right here. And another thing you want to do is push it back, because we need some space here. We can't have our walls too thin when we're 3D printing and 3D modeling and stuff. So there's our basic knee shape. And from the front, it's basically just going to look like this. You know, just a funky little square man. You can add more detail to it as you work. I personally, well, before I continue, we also need to have some channels right here. This is where the elastic is going to go in. So when it bends, it'll go through here. Just like that. You only need a little bit of surface right here, just so that it isn't totally hollow, you know, it holds itself together. So now that we've got like this funky, interesting shape here, I'm going to erase some of this extra detail because we don't really need it. So what I like to do when I make my knee joints is I like to add locking pegs. So I'm going to put, so once we hollow this doll's leg out, it's going to go something like this. Here's the back, here's the front. Well, you could put it a little bit lower. So I'm going to just kind of estimate that I'll put a little nub right here, because we really like for a little nub to be on these places right here, or like this, like catching on the outside. This is like a lock, so that when your doll stands, it locks into place, it won't go anywhere. And you can move the locks here, you can move the locks over here, just wherever you think works best. I think the closer to the back, probably the better. And then if you wanted, you could add like a pretty knee joint. You could sculpt a little heart right here. Just, you know, you can have it flat on the front. You could slowly ease it in like this. And then add, you know, some walls like this. And, you know, if it goes deeper in, that's okay. If it goes further back, that's okay. It's not like a perfect way to make it. You just kind of sculpt it and play with it. So we'll pretend that this has this kneecap here. So we'll pretend that that's how the knee is going to look. And you kind of make it function from the side, and you might end up cleaning the front a little bit. So like you might need to make your knee joint wider. You know, you might need to make it skinnier. You might make it so wide that that it sticks out like this and it rotates, so that there's nothing holding it in like that. You can do that. It doesn't have to go all the way down and cover the front. It doesn't have to go this far down. You could have it up here if you wanted. And I just think that this works a little better because it's more friction. The more friction you have, the more stable it'll be. So now we're going to kind of test this knee out. So the best way to do that is to see how something will bend is we're going to use that circle that we have drawn. Get rid of this here. So this is about the median of this circle, right? So we're going to just bend it. And what do we think? Do we think that that works? Is this too close? Is this leg going to hit it? Let's see. I'm going to draw this little leg right here. Yep. And this is just going to go like that. We're going to rotate it. Okay, cool. That looks fine so far. Now let's rotate this leg part. And anytime you rotate the upper or lower legs, or even rotate this, you want to rotate it on these circles that we built, like right here. Pretend it's a little wheel, like on these little points. So let's see if we rotate this leg on that center point. And that looks fine. It looks like that has enough range of motion that it's not going to hit, oops, what we have sculpted here. And if it does, we can flatten this out if we want it to have more range of motion. We can flatten this out if we don't want to flatten this. Hopefully that is making sense. But that's kind of how I test stuff. Yeah. So there's our knee here. You can kind of just draw like a paper doll version of it. We also need to make sure that this knee works from the front. So remember that we made this a circle. Oops. So from the front, this is a perfect sphere. It's going to be there and straight down. Like this. Now, in my opinion, let me turn that off. This is too thin right here. Like, if we wanted to have this knee go down and cover this, like this, say that this is the sculpted knee part. These walls here are too thin. So we either need to shrink our knee like this so that there is enough wall thickness here. See how that's kind of thicker? Or we need to thicken this up out here. But you can shrink it. But you can shrink it. Your knee does not have to be a perfect sphere. It can be a disc. So if we do it like this, this will work fine. You could sculpt a fun little cute knee right here, like how we had it drawn on. So it would be like that. You could have it poke off a little bit on the sides, like this. So that this touches, and you know, you have your hole here and your hole here. So from the front, this knee would work from the front and the side. And you can draw it and do a paper dummy test, and then you can, you know, you can use this as an ortho view and sculpt it. But yeah, that's how you kind of build a knee. You build it from the side, you build it from the front, you make your model fit around it, or you squish your knee to fit. The most important thing is you want this first sphere to be like almost as wide as your leg, because your leg is gonna go leg piece, and then your knee is just gonna be a fun little circle. Let me hide that. So here's your leg, here's your leg, your leg bends, and it's got to go out this far. You got to make sure it's not, you know, too crazy when it hits. That's why you want to have it 2 circles, like 2 circles and a little gap, because that gives it enough space to move on. Hopefully that makes sense. You know, you'll end up cutting parts in the back so that it can bend like that. You can't just have it straight. But I have a knee joint on my Colts 3D, and you do the exact same thing for elbows. I've used elbows and knee joints like the same shape and just slapped them there and scaled them up and down, and you just kind of test and pose and test. And things in real life, when it's got elastic, it has a little bit more give to it. It's a little more forgiving than when you're just sculpting it. So that will work too. Doesn't have to be like mathematically 100% accurate, because in, you know, with the elastic and actual physics, you can bend it, you can pop it. And one more thing with those locks that I was talking about, which finished. I like to have my locks like catch there. And when I'm sculpting, I duplicate my knee object. Oops. God darn it. Just drawing on the wrong layer. I'll erase all this stuff again. I like to put my locks where the model or the doll part ends, so that this can kind of sink into it. And when I am 3D modeling and adding my lock mechanisms, I will put my rotating axis as the center of the first circle and just rotate. And then do it again. Rotate. And then I'll do it again. So you can see how, you can have those 4 locks there in your doll, and it's not, it's not too close to this wall and making it too thin. I wouldn't rotate it again, because if you do it here, it's going to be too thin. Then he doesn't need to bend more than this much. It only needs to go about 45 degrees. Is that what this is? 90 degrees? Can't remember what degree this is. This guy go up and down and then sideways. That's it. Any more than that, and it's just kind of excessive. But you can duplicate your knee with these little nubs. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Use a Boolean function to create this as one humongous goofy mass, and then use that as a cutting object. And cut that into your knee. Bam, you'll have locking channels. Now, also from the front, I forgot to mention, your nubs will be kind of like this. You'll have one on that side, one on this side. But you don't have to have nubs. You can start simple. You can just do the simple peanut knee. So a lot of people do that. If you want to add locking mechanisms, you can. You don't have to. You can use wire. You can suede it. But that is my tip for. Those are my tips for like building a knee. Start simple. You can always add more to it. Get the basic shape working and rotating how you want, and then scale it. Make it fit. Have fun, play with it. Just do test prints. You're free to use my knee. Just copy what works and try and fail and have fun. That's all there really is to it. But hopefully this isn't too long, and hopefully it gives you some ideas. Make sure you keep your wall thickness in mind. One more thing you'll want to do is after you finish your knee object or make your booleans and you add those little nubs, whatever shape you end up with for your knee, you need to make your channel or the spot that knee sits in your 3D printed doll bigger, because when you print it, resin shrinks. When you print it, there's going to be pretend it's going to grow a little bit. So just cut a little bit extra space into your model and you'll be golden. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just, try, fail, learn, live and learn. Hanging on the edge of tomorrow. Make that doll. Do it and have fun while you're at it. Okay, bye.